I'm outside an 11th century country church here in Austerfield, South Yorkshire, a few miles from the North Nottinghamshire border. In this church on March the 19th, 1590, William Bradford was baptised. William Bradford was a leading member of a group which has the rare merit of changing the history of the world. They were known as the Pilgrim Fathers, or Pilgrims as we now call them. William became an orphan at the age of 7 and was brought up by his uncles. He was a sickly boy, and rather than working in the fields, spent most of his time reading many books, especially the Bible. At the age of 12, William Bradford was invited to go to Babworth, 10 miles from Austerfield, and listen to the powerful sermons of the Reverend Richard Clifton. Here he met William Brewster, another key figure of this story. They became friends. Brewster was an elder in this church. Shortly afterwards, Bradford and Brewster, with others from the surrounding countryside and villages, met for fellowship in Brewster's home here in Screwbury. Here in Screwbury we see reminders of these men. Along with many others in England, they were devout people who believed that the church at that time should be less ritualistic and simpler in its worship, more like the church they read about in the New Testament part of the Bible. They were Puritans who wanted to change the church from within. But soon Bradford, Brewster and their friends thought this was hopeless and wanted a separate congregation, a separate church. However, this caused problems with King James I and others in his government. Before James, Queen Elizabeth I was more tolerant towards the separatists of North Nottinghamshire. On coming to the throne in 1603, James I began a policy which enforced religious conformity or rules. He warned the Puritans and the separatists that he would harry them out of the land. Some were fined, some were imprisoned for a while. They felt the pressure of persecution. So they decided with others from all over England to make their way to Leiden in Holland, a country where there was much more religious freedom. In Holland, for some years, they lived as a community, and Bradford himself made a good living as a weaver. Later, he married Dorothy May. As time went by, many became concerned that their children were adopting Dutch language and customs, and so these brave and principled people took the momentous decision to cross the vast Atlantic Ocean to settle in the new world of America. In 1620, they hired a ship called the Speedwell and sailed to the southern coast of England, where they transferred to a larger, stronger ship called the Mayflower. There were 102 settlers and around 30 crew, and they set sail from Plymouth on September the 6th. The voyage across the Atlantic was full of potential danger, and 2 died. But they were fortunate. Although there were severe storms, these were survived, and very importantly, there were no pirate attacks. On November the 9th, after 65 days at sea, they sighted land. It was not the best place for a settlement, so they moved along the coast to the natural harbour, now known as New Plymouth. They finally landed on December the 17th. The winter was a terrible time. Half their number died, including Bradford's wife, Dorothy. However, the local Indians or Native Americans helped them with hunting, planting crops, and fishing the seas for cod and bass. In the autumn of 1621, they celebrated with a great feast and thanked God for the first year in their new home. William later married a widow, Alice Southworth, and he became the second governor of the colony. His journal became a classic of American literature. After years of service, he died in 1657. This colony was the foundation of much of American life we see today. In spite of all their successes, faults and failures, they sought the idea of freedom of religion, the value of you as an individual, and equality under the law. These principles arising from the Bible beliefs of these early settlers. 2.5 centuries later, President Abraham Lincoln, a man with a great knowledge of the Bible, described America as a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Lincoln declared a national yearly holiday on the 4th Thursday of November, known as Thanksgiving, in honor and memory of those early pioneers. True, subsequent American history has been turbulent with the scourges of slavery and segregation, but it is interesting to note that the civil rights campaign to end these stains on American reputation was also partly inspired by the same Bible that inspired the Pilgrims. Many Americans trace their family history back to the Pilgrims. They regard the colony as a foundation event in the history of the United States of America. And this great adventure began in the small and almost forgotten rural villages of North Nottinghamshire and South Yorkshire.